Good morning to all our members. This is
Morning.
Good morning.
Friday, July the 11th. There's another
June.
Thank you. I said July. Whew. Moving right along, wasn't it?
She's
All
working
right.
me to death.
I apologize for that. My sheet does say June the 11th, Friday, June the 11th, 2021, for the committee meeting for the state certified trainers. We'll go ahead, if it's okay, and we'll get started and do the roll call. What did this do with my sheet? Curtis Brown,
Present.
Dustin Madison, Jack Bird,
Present.
Leroy Ferris,
Present.
Frank Gaddis,
Present.
Blaze Lane,
Present.
Andrew Rodriguez, Donald Gregory,
Present.
January Farrell,
Present.
Frankie Lax. All right. Let the record show that we have a quorum, but at the moment, Dustin Madison is not present. All right, thank you. Let's go ahead. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the agenda? I'll need a motion with a second to adopt.
Motion.
Curtis Brown? Yes. You made the motion.
Oh, I made the motion. I thought she said I made the motion.
Okay.
Then I'll second it.
I'm not really familiar, other than the female, of course, with your name, your voices just yet, so that's why I'm trying. How about the minutes? Everybody had an opportunity to look at the minutes. I get a motion and a second to adopt.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Please, second.
Motion by Curtis Brown and a second by Lane to adopt the. Yes. That is how it got mixed up. And motion carries. Now we have the continued discussion for the unarmed guard curriculum with the final exam, and I'll turn this over to Jeff Winfrey.
Well, good morning, everybody, and I guess the first thing I did have a question. Attachments was that we that was concerning to me about all that stuff. His primary. In my PowerPoint. Groceries is what's in material that's within. Alright, that's a $10,000 camera with a screen that produce.
They got to start over, Jeff.
At the beginning.
Y'all don't want to hear all that again.
No. This is what we're
So-
going to do.
So anyway, so I might tell that story. You're going to tell whatever story that you're familiar with, whatever, whether it's a war story, whether it's whatever. What you've got to make sure that you don't do is fill up all the time with that and not use what we've got in our grocery basket, which is the curriculum that we have developed. Any comments, or am I missing the boat on any of that? I mean, am I still kind of back where I need to be?
So let me ask, so what you're saying, Jeff, is we have this presentation and you can use it in whatever format you want to use it in.
Correct.
We're not saying you have to sit everybody down and do this, but this is what you need to cover. Was there any, I thought that was pretty plain. Are we all in agreement that we do know what that, okay. Good.
Just at the last meeting, there seemed to be some concern about using the PowerPoint or
Just wanted to know,
making the presentation.
we just wanted to make sure, like you said, like Frank. As long as the same groceries were in there,
Absolutely.
no matter which kind of cart we use.
Right. Doesn't matter whether you brought it in a paper sack or a
Carry cart, push cart, as
or
long as we have.
a $500 Pelican case. You know, you bring the material in and then you open it up. You know, open up your can of worms in the classroom to whatever your classroom is. And I will tell
So your
you,
analogy is, doesn't matter what kind of bread, Sara Lee, Wonder, Colonial, as long as they get the bread.
as long as they get the bread
got it.
and the meat and potatoes that we've created, that's what's important.
Doesn't matter what brand, it just, and how they get it, as long as they get the bread. I get
It
it.
can be white bread, wheat bread, Dollar General bread, or it can be, I don't know too many breads, but it can be the best bread you can buy. But what you want is the stuff that's on the sandwich. You want good, fresh, good quality stuff. And I think we've got good quality stuff. I mean, I don't think that there's anything in the presentation that there's nothing in there that's incorrect. So we're not dispensing incorrect information. Make sure of that. Now, as far as, and I've already had some people ask me, you know, can I go above and beyond what? Absolutely. And I've tried to point this out. As long as it's in addition to and not in lieu of. You know, I called on Frank one time to watch his presentation, and when we got through, Cody and I compared our notes. She said, I don't remember anything about first aid. I said, no, I didn't either. We both came up with the same conclusion. I said, well, Frank, you got to talk about first aid. You don't have that in your presentation. Well, the rest, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story, he said, I'm going to do that tomorrow. It'll be all day long. That's okay, you know. So he did have first aid in his training class, but it wasn't 30 minutes or an hour of it. It was all day long, and that's okay. So it wasn't left out. It was just expounded upon in a bigger way. And as long as you, if you work in a market that allows that, you know, if you work in an area and there's 1,000 certified trainers, and you're doing something unique that is very difficult and very expensive, and somebody else over here is not doing that, they're doing the very bare minimum, they may end up getting more business than you do. Does that mean you have to change your way of doing business? I don't know. It may, but I mean that's a market demand. And you know we don't get into that here. We don't tell you all how to run your business or anything like that. If you can get by with doing 8 or 9 hours and you still got people coming to take your class, go for it. All the power to you. Just make sure you're covering the minimum stuff that we've got in here, which is, again, I think it's very adequate. So any other, and I'm willing to show y'all just real quick some of the things that I did here. I'll try to go through there pretty quickly. On the PowerPoint, let me go down to slide 50. Oh. Okay. I didn't know that was animated. I'll probably take that out. Didn't we take all the animated stuff out? Okay. So it is on slide 55. I changed that from black font to red. And I used that word several times. And this is something that we hear today on a regular basis. Just the other night, the Metro Police Chief was talking about all the gun violence that's going on in the city right now here in Nashville. He said, people are just, they're short-tempered and, the first thing they want, they're like, well, I don't like what you just said to me, and they go for their gun. And he even used the word de-escalation. He said they just don't have any de-escalation skills. And I, to be honest with you, I don't think we're born with those. We're born with the fight or flight response. That's what our DNA is imprinted in our body. If something's hot, get away from it. If something is threatening, either get away from it or fight it. So we have to learn how to de-escalate. We have to learn how to use verbal judo when, and that's the thing, we don't have any control over what the bad guy or the perpetrator, they can start at level 5 on the force continuum. Like the guy just recently, about a month ago, that police pulled him over, he immediately got out with 2 butcher knives. He started at level 5, and it didn't go well for him. And there was a lot of de-escalation attempts that were unsuccessful. But so I changed that to red, and I will change it back where it just is on the slide, not where it flies in there. I like some of those kind of things about PowerPoint sometimes, but I didn't know it was doing that, so I'll fix that. And then I added, so there was a question about the use of force continuum, and so what I ended up doing is I went back. This was the slide that some of y'all said you liked the circular version of that versus the stair-step version or whatever. I'll be honest with you, at first I didn't like this. I look at it and it's like, it's too much. But when you sort of study it and think about what's going on, it actually kind of grew on me. So I'm good with that. I'm going to propose that we put the same group of slides that has this on it. There's 6 or 7 of them. I'm going to propose we also put the same ones in the armed and in the armed renewal, because this is important. This is good stuff. We making sure. Right. Added to each one of them that same sentence in red, that bottom bullet point. De-escalation should be the focus and objective of every difficult or potentially hostile situation. Got to go out there with that in your mind. Whatever happens, we want to de-escalate and get it back to kind of ground level. I just added that to each one of the slides. And there's another one that I've opened up. Anyway, there it is at the bottom of that. I had to change the font size just a little bit because it was didn't fit in there too well. There it is again at the bottom. There it is. There it is again. Remember when you were in school, and I don't know how many of you went to college, but when you were in school and the teacher said, if you see something once, it may be important. If you see something twice, it probably is important. And if you see something 3 times, you can bet that's important. Well, if you see it 8 times, I think that stresses the importance that we always want to de-escalate every chance we get. So that's one. The only reason I didn't put it here is there wasn't room. So all right. Let's see. 71. Oh, okay. This was a suggestion from one of you guys. This was the course overview that we talked about from the beginning. And when I realized that we had left off the low income fee waiver law, and I put it back in there in one of the slides, it was pointed out to me that it wasn't listed on the course overview. So I put it there, third up from the bottom. You'll be talking about a waiver of initial license fees for low-income persons. I'll put that on that slide. All right, so this is the one where, this is the one that talks about the Fresh Start Act. And so Cody and I have discussed this, and you all thought it was a little excessive, had a lot of different slides on it. So what we decided to do, instead of removing it from the presentation, it is now, if you're the instructor, if y'all could see my computer screen here, over to the side, there's a set of notes. The entire statute is printed in those notes. And then I added in red here at the bottom of this slide. So basically, I want y'all talking to people about their criminal history. And we don't need them bringing it up in class. One time, no, I don't want to know one time what you did. I don't want to know 20 times what you did.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask. Excuse me. How many of you have students that say, "Hey, I do have a criminal record. Can I get this license?"
That's standard. They're going to ask.
This is a topic of conversation then. Yeah. Okay. So what are they saying? Are they telling you what their criminal record is in front of the entire student body, or they spill the guts?
Some of them do, yeah.
And that's why I said,
To the side and
I don't-
say,
we
I
don't
have
need
a
to know
question,
that.
can I ask you after?
One of them presented me with his entire 32-page rap sheet right in front of the class.
32 pages?
32 pages.
Yes.
7
sometime-
felonies. I can't remember how
When
many
we look at these criminal
Little
records, they may be
Little
45
felonies.
to 50 pages.
Little felonies.
I mean, I've seen that much when I was at the highway patrol, I've seen that when I've arrested people.
Yeah.
But I've never seen
So that is something that the student is going to ask you about. So do you stop them and say, no, we don't need to discuss that at this moment, or we'll talk to you after class, or?
Well, okay, this is gonna sound awful, but some of the people that come in our classes at Don, I don't know if you have the same problem. They really are.
Really? Oh, yes.
I'm in Memphis. Yeah, they're proud of it.
I've got to come to Memphis. I'm coming to Memphis.
It's kind of like the veteran officer that's got all the slash marks down his sleeve.
They'll tell you everything. I had one kid come to class.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Yeah, they're,
No filter.
exactly, that's.
Okay, are you telling them to go ahead and fill out an application, and whenever the state receives that, they review their background to see if they're eligible?
We've
tell
told them
them?
they're more than
From
welcome.
my experience, whenever I introduce the Fresh Start Act and then I actually qualify. Oh,
Right, that 5 years does make that draws a line in the sand right there.
Well, that 5 years just says that you have to be off probation at least 5 years before you make application.
Now, in last week,
he gets arrested because he has 3 murders under his belt. He's 16 years old. And I said, well, he said, Chief Brown, hey, you think when I get out, I can do what you do? I said, no. I did not go into the Fresh Start Act. He has 3 murders on him. He would never work for me. I would never sign anything with my
First
name
of all,
on it
he's
for
a
him.
juvenile, so it depends on whether they tried him as an adult or a
Tried as an
juvenile.
adult. Yeah. Yeah. He killed 3 people. And I asked him, I said, well, why did you do it? Well, I bought some weed from him. And when I tasted the weed, I guess that means he smoked it or something, whatever. I don't smoke weed, so I smoke cigars. So he said, I didn't like it, so I shot all 3 of them in the head. I said, damn. He said, when I pay for my weed, I want my weed right or I'll kill somebody. And I told him, I said, you'll never be an officer of any sort with an attitude and anger management behavior like that.
Yeah, that sounds like it's an extreme case there.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And we just had a shooting as I was leaving yesterday. We've had, oh God, we have at least 5 or 6 shootings every week for the last 12 weeks. And they're all fatalities in Knoxville. It's just getting out.
Well, let me tell you all about
outrageous.
those applications. I do get telephone calls. I mean, I have this, the trainer told me I need to call you. I have this on my background. We're not supposed to review backgrounds without an application. This is where it kind of gets kind of difficult. Because here they're spending their money, or the company's spending the money to send them to you, or what to pay the fee or whatever. Yeah, that's what it is. But I try to steer away from that, because when you talk to me on the telephone, that's not all the time what I see on the record. Well, I've only been charged with this, or I've only been convicted of that, and that was in Tennessee, but they didn't tell me what they did in Alaska or Maine or wherever. So when I said yes over the phone based on that, then when I get the record, I'll have to say no. So I tell them no, I won't talk to them over the phone about their criminal record.
My problem is when I am training, when the other companies call me into research or to cert new officers, recruits, whatever you want to call them when they come in. The problem I'm having is that a lot of them will tell me, yes, I do have a felony on my record, but the boss at this security company told me it was okay. And I'm like, no. If you have pending charges and you have a felony, it is not okay. That has to be reviewed. And he said, well, I don't want to pay my money and then I'm not able to get my money back. I said, that's the cost of filling out the application. I mean, we can't say, okay, well, we'll make this go away and we'll go ahead on and certify you because you made that mistake. You made the choice to do that, so now you have to suffer the consequences. You pay your money and you're not going to get it back. I'm just honest and upfront with them. I tell them I don't think that you're going to be one of the applicants that's going to pass through. I'm just being honest and upfront with you, so you don't waste my time, and I'm not wasting your time. You're not wasting the state's time. I mean, am I wrong for saying that?
No, I think you can always refer them also to TCA 6235-117.
Okay.
It's kind of the first place to look because that way you're looking specifically. Because we get that question a lot of they say, well, I don't have a felony, I've got a misdemeanor. But then
Right.
you look under that, it's a misdemeanor assault.
Exactly.
And, so that disqualifies them for that 5-year
Right.
period. So I think that's always the first one, when Cody Vest and I look at these, that's the first thing we do is we say, if they haven't made an application yet, we can't really make a determination based on what, we're seeing, though, is unlikely. Or based on what we're seeing, make your application, we'll consider it. But we always try to tell them, look at 6235-117. They know their background usually much better than we do. I mean, normally,
Yeah, they
even
do.
when we get that,
They just don't. They're just not as forthcoming with.
right. Even when we get that TBI report, there's things on there that we'll see that it didn't pick it up correctly, and they'll say, "Oh no, I pled to this."
Right.
And they'll provide that court record. They're very knowledgeable about usually their own background. So we do try to refer them to 117 first, so that way they can kind of get an eye and look at it and go, "Oh, I did plead down from a felony to misdemeanor assault. I am, disqualified as 5 years." But if they don't, if that's after 5 years, or if they don't have a felony or misdemeanor that falls under that section, the Fresh Start Act can be a little bit tricky because it is a case-by-case basis. There are certain, a murder case, if you say that individual's tried as an adult, we'll just use that kind of
Right.
to look at. There are certain felonies that there's already going to be that presumption that you're not qualified to engage in this type of activity. Same thing if you're on one of the sex offender registries. There's that presumption that you're not going to be, even if that was 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah, but that's permanent.
Right.
Sex
There's still
registry.
there's that
Yeah.
presumption. I mean, it could be a situation, because we are supposed to look at a case-by-case basis, where maybe they overcome that presumption. But again, it's pretty hard to look at that, with some of those felonies and say, yes, we'll consider all these factors and give you a license if you have a murder charge. I mean, homicide is a serious,
Yes.
very serious offense. And that's one of the first factors on there is the seriousness of this offense. But then you also look at some of the other factors. How does this weigh on your ability to engage in this profession? If you're trying to say, I'm going to be an armed security guard, and you have shot someone unlawfully, that's probably going to say that you are not
Right.
going to be able to engage. You don't possess the fitness to engage in this type of, and I think that's what you were telling that young man.
Yeah.
You don't have the fitness or capacity to engage in this profession based on those types of acts.
What about unarmed?
Unarmed, I think it's a little bit more I think there's more flexibility sometimes with
It
unarmed.
is, in my opinion, and some of y'all may agree or disagree, but even in that category, as unarmed, you've got somebody that has a rap sheet of assault. I don't want him working for my company because the first thing's going to happen, somebody's going to piss him off and he's going to assault them. Now there goes my liability insurance.
Exactly, and I think we look at all those factors together. I mean, when we look at the seriousness of the crime, the amount of time that's occurred, if there's any rehabilitation is another factor that we normally, and that's something I would talk to these people too about, is we usually don't get evidence of any rehabilitation,
Right.
And that's a factor that I think could really go either way. If you've got someone who's got a rap sheet of a lot of drug charges, but they've gone through rehab, they're engaged in Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, something like that. They do counseling, whatever those.
So that
things
will
are.
help their situation.
That
That's
would
what
help
you're
them.
saying.
And normally,
Okay.
we'll see people with, they'll have drug possession, violation of probation. Well, why did you violate drug possession? you know, and when we're looking at all that together and we're saying, well, this is a tough call because maybe it doesn't completely look at the capacity to engage in this type of work. It doesn't have a direct bearing on it. But if there's no evidence of rehabilitation, well, that could kind of go against you. So I think, you know, I would refer them to the Fresh Start Act, have them look at those factors, have them look at, you know, their background. They can always call us, but we can't necessarily make a determination because we've had a lot of people who they'll say, I've got a misdemeanor, you know, drug charge. And we're thinking, okay, well, if that's it, you know, go ahead and make your application. Well, it was a misdemeanor drug charge, but there was also an assault with it. There was also unlawful possession of a firearm. You know, it'll be other things
Right.
that were tied to that, and they don't disclose that to us. So I would tell them to first look at 117, then the Fresh Start Act. We're happy to talk to people about their backgrounds. We can't give them a determination until they make that application.
That's what they're trying to force
Right.
us into doing, giving them a positive determination
Right.
as to yes, you will be able to get through this. They'll send a waiver. This and that. You know, that's what they're looking for. That's what the companies that are hiring these people. That's what they're telling them. And when they come to me, oh, I was sent here by Chief such and such or this such and such security company, and he said to go ahead on and get you to certify me, send me through the PPS training course. And I said, well, I'll have to call him. So what I'm going to start doing, I'm just going to print out 117 and give it to him and tell him to take it back to whoever it is that he works for and let them read it and then let them decide. Because I told them, once you pay me, you get no money back.
Right.
And there's no guarantee that this officer is going to pass the background check or anything else or qualify for armed or unarmed. Because, you know, like I said, I've seen those out there. I'm not signing my name on armed or unarmed.
And I think there's, you know, kind of a twofold thing. You know, we have that analysis, and so should the companies. I mean, realistically, you're exactly right. Because if the company is hiring this person, and that's something that I suppose we could consider as well, maybe under that rehabilitation factor. If you have a company that's saying, you know what, we understand this individual, we understand they have a checkered past. However, you know, we are willing to employ them. We think that they have engaged in rehabilitation. We think that they are no longer, you know, maybe a threat to assault someone again. Maybe they've dealt with their anger issues. Because we're looking at this person on paper. But, you know, if you do have someone who says, I do have a personal relationship with them, as an employer who's willing to put that person on my liability insurance, if you're willing to do that, I would consider that as part of that Fresh Start Act factor for the rehabilitation, possibly. I mean, it's not definitive because we have plenty of employers who they don't know the background. They don't know the full thing. You know, they'll have someone come to them and say, oh, that was 20 years ago. You know, I'm no longer engaged in this. Well, you didn't tell your employer about these violations of probation. You didn't tell your employer.
Well, that throws up red
you tell them
flags.
Exactly.
You know, if you're not, I understand we're saying we're going to do the 5-year thing.
Right.
You know, I understand that. But if I've got somebody coming in here and he did something 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 20 years ago, and it hasn't been disclosed, you know, it being expunged, okay, that's fine, but I still that's something I would still like to know. You know, if I'm going to put you on my roster and cover you under my liability insurance, that's something I would like to know. You know, I'm not saying that's going to disqualify you, and then when in the classes I do let them know that. I'm not saying that's going to disqualify you, but full disclosure is apparent. You know, I tell them it's mandatory. You know, if you're looking for trust, you want me to trust you, then I'm going to have to trust you. So you're going to have to disclose information to me so I can protect you and you can protect me.
Right. And that's Cody Vested brought up as well. If it's an expungement, normally that's not disclosed. We do sometimes.
Can you talk to them about if they have an expungement?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Now,
saying.
right, with that being said, there is, if you look in the PowerPoint, not always just because it says it's expunged has it been expunged. So
Exactly.
And
Right.
if we go off the premise, just like you guys, we don't have all that information.
Yeah.
You can deny them and proceed charges because they are thinking it's expunged. We're thinking it's expunged,
And it's not.
And it's not.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of times where they've told us, "Oh, that shouldn't be on my record. That should have been
Yeah,
expunged."
see, that's what I was
and
saying.
it's well, you didn't pay the fee, or
Exactly.
you know, it's something minor. It's technical like that, you know. Unfortunately, so we're aware of it now at this point. And not all charges are eligible to be expunged. I think that's
Right.
something else. We have people who will talk to us about wanting to have their charges expunged or their convictions expunged. Sorry, and it's not going to based on what they pled to or were found guilty of.
Right.
You can refer them. There are a lot of attorneys who do expungements, so I would always just tell them, go talk to a private attorney, and they can talk to you about your rights with expungement, because I'm not going to give anyone legal advice on whether or not it can be expunged. I'm not their attorney. I'm not being paid to do that. You're not their attorney. You're not being paid to do that. So tell them to go talk to a private attorney and see if they can get it expunged, because there are some that are ineligible for that.
I think the bottom line here is we have a duty to mention this just because it's there, and they technically have a right to know about this. But as we pointed out, you're not an attorney, you're not representing them, you just give them the facts. And if and it says right here, there's more information in the note section. If you need to know more, get with your certified trainer. And when they ask you, can you guarantee me that, you can't guarantee them anything. We guarantee we won't give them a registration if they don't meet, step 1 through Z or whatever. But it's all right here. And if you want to print that out, or if you want to go on the internet and look at it and print it out and make copies of it and give it to them or whatever, that's something that you can do. So the presentation should empower you as a certified trainer to, one of the things that Cody and I talked about the other day, she said, well, I just don't want the certified trainers to give them the wrong information. Well, the only way we can ensure that you don't give them the wrong information is for us to give you the correct information and then tell you only what of that to give them. So I think this will work well that way, because I do know that this comes up every day. And you're talking about the 30-something page rap sheet. We have them come in here, you got any charges? Oh, no, don't have anything. And you got to go put paper in the thing twice because it, runs out trying to print it. It's like, did you forget about all this stuff? Oh, yeah, I do remember that one time, so. But anyway, we hear that all the time too. So that's how we handled that. Instead of it being 7 or 8 slides now, all that law, that's all you're going to talk about. You're just going to say you still might be able to get your registration. As long as it's been 5 years have passed. Like Blaze said, you got all kinds of people that's got all kinds of stuff going on. Oh man, this just happened last year, so I know I'm not going to qualify because it's not been 5 years. So you're going to weed out a bunch right there. But Blaze needs to know that. Y'all need to know that, just so you can tell them, it's 5 years. You don't have to know what their criminal history is. You don't want to know. You don't want to be in part of the next court hearing because you had some information or knowledge about it. But you can tell them, if 5 years hadn't passed, you're probably going down a path that you're going to hit a brick wall when you get to the end of it. All right, so I did away with about 6 or 7 slides that had all of that law on it, and they are now in the note section of slide number 110. So if you just go to 110, it pops up over here on the side, and you got all your notes there. And the very next slide talks about the waiver of initial licensure fees for low-income persons. I don't know how many of y'all, I had a couple of looks whenever I first said that. This is pretty new, 2 years. This is about 2 years old. And basically what the state legislature a couple of years ago passed this law, and there was some concern that regulatory boards might be preventing or interfering with a person's right to work because of excessive fees and this, that, or the other. So the answer to that was this law. And if you are currently receiving government assistance like supplemental nutrition, whatever SNAP is, food, what used to be food stamps, TANF, something, assistance for needy families.
So all of those.
All of those will qualify. 10 care, if you're on 10 care.
Medicare is not one of those.
Yeah, Medicare is
It's
not one of them.
Just because you're on Medicare does not mean you qualify.
If you're on Medicaid, what they used to call Medicaid, that was state-sponsored health insurance or whatever, but that is now called TennCare.
So does 10-care qualify?
Yes. Yes. So, so I added that, and then I put a slide about it, and it's not as long of a law, but the meat of it is right here. It defines what a low-income person is, and then it says any licensing authority that requires a license for persons to practice in a profession shall waive all initial licensure fees. And I put that in red, and then I went out there to the end of it, and that's not part of the law. I just put it in parentheses out at the end. This does not apply to renewals. So you may be able to get your registration without paying the fee. But every 2 years when you renew, you got to pay the piper then. You got to pay the renewal fee, and they have to pay, if it's an armed, they got to pay you guys to do their armed renewal training. And then at the end, it says your certified trainer has more information in the notes section of this slide. If you have questions, be sure to get with them. So if you look at the PowerPoint presentation, then in the notes, the entire law is there, exactly what it says. So, and if they want to not have more questions, then you have the answer right there. And if they want you to interpret the law for them, you can tell them, I'm not a lawyer. And I just, here's what it says. And then they can call a lawyer somewhere. There's several of them around.
That just simply means they're making an application, and we're doing that for free. We do everything in the office.
On an initial.
On the initials only.
What kind
that
of
is
proof
state
do
law.
they need to supply?
It tells you, he had up there on that other slide what document said, yeah. If you were receiving Medicaid, I'm sure you got a letter from the Medicaid office or wherever it is. That's the trouble. A lot of them don't keep that letter. They have the card, but we need the front and the back of that card when they send it to us. Yeah.
None of them supply it when they make applications.
And of course it has to be
0%.
active. Some of them will give us the letter that says, there's 5 of us in the family and we get an X number of food stamps or whatever. We'll accept that letter because
it comes from DHS,
DHS.
Department of Human Services.
But it tells you who's qualified, so we need the form or something. Yes, Jack.
Question: how often do you all get these requests, like the indency?
Every day?
Daily.
Well, sure.
Multiplicatively
This is something
daily.
everybody, well, how the news got out, we don't know.
Well, that's kind of what I'm after, because you got a room full of trainers, and I know a lot of us have never taught this in a class. Some of us didn't even know it existed. So how do they find out about this? And how frequent is it, I guess, was my drive, because I just didn't see it need.
When you go
not the right
online to
venue.
make application, if I'm not mistaken, that's one of the questions we ask on there. Do you qualify for the low income? That's a red flag to them, so they'll stop and they'll look at it, and then they'll continue with it, and they have to supply us with the documents, and then they get that license for free.
That's nothing we got to deal with. They have to do that.
Oh, they do that when they make an application online. Mm-hmm.
I just feel like that it's important that it be in the curriculum that you all know, because all of you are sitting here looking like I didn't even know this. So y'all need to know about that.
That doesn't mean you're giving it to them for free.
Yeah.
It just means when they make the application to the
Yeah,
state,
there's nothing
if
in
they
here
qualify.
that says you've got to train them for free.
That's the
Now,
I like charity, but
Frankie, that would bring the mom and pop shops out of the woodwork, and that would not be fair for us to say, hey, we're going to exempt them from the fee, so you should too. Well, you can't do that. You know, that'd run you bankrupt if you're doing your business for free.
And I love this idea, though. We can do just like the judicial system here, and we'll just bill it back to the state. I mean, just like attorneys do. You can appoint us, and we'll be glad to do it. We'll take them.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm just offering. Frank said he'll take all of them.
Trainer, not only do I train them, but I fill out those applications for our guards every day, anywhere from 15 to 30 a day, which is a pain in the rear end. But it's the very last question before you go upload everything. And most of us don't know. Truthfully, with the companies that I train for, they don't even tell me, like, oh, we'll just payroll deduct you.
Yeah, that's another thing there, January. I see a state fee for $150 when the state fee's only $70. So what's the other fee for? But we'll see. I'll see their stub, payroll stub, and these companies.
They're gouging them. They really are.
Then they leave this company. They go here to this company. Well, I don't care if you made an application for the state or not. I'm going to fill out a new application, so they charge them another $100. So I mean, some things we see just aren't right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is something that the legislators have passed. But I'm going to let Jesse go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that the reason why this might be important for everyone to actually be aware of is because we get a lot of these requests. I think they check the yes, I qualify, but we don't get a lot of the documentation. So I think that that's one thing that is just to be aware, because there's plenty of people, and we never hear back from them, so then we say, okay, well, you're denied because you didn't pay the filing fee, and they say, well, I didn't pay the filing fee because I'm exempt. Well, you're not exempt because you didn't submit the paperwork. So it becomes circular, even though we do reach back out to them and say, you indicated that you receive assistance, we just need proof of it. If we don't receive it, then they owe that fee. If we don't get it, then they're denied. So that does delay it, and especially if you're working for a company, and that company, if you're doing in-house training, that company's putting them on post, and then they were denied for something like a fee that was not paid. It just ends up becoming back on the company then of, okay, well, maybe we had a guard that was working without, not working on application, because they were denied. They're working on license. So that's just something to be aware of, because I think, Angel, you work for a company, you train people in-house, so that's maybe more so for you than for Frankie Lax, but I think everyone probably should be aware of it. And then two, like you were saying, January Farrell, if you are helping people with these applications, I know it's on there, I know it's already on there, so you can tell them, oh yeah, it's on the application, you'll see it when you get to it. But if you are assisting them with the applications, just so that way, we have someone else helping them, so that way they're not denied at a later date.
Another thing that I know is happening with contract security companies and some training academies, they will assist the applicant, and especially if the contract security company is taking that money out of their paycheck, I think sometimes they don't even tell them about this. And so they just say, well, we're going to take your money anyway. Well, if a person is legally eligible for the exemption and you don't tell them about it, and they decide to bring it to somebody's attention, then that's going to come back and bite somebody one of these days. So you just need to tell them about it. And the thing that's aggravating about the system is if you ask them, are you receiving government assistance? If you say yes, it doesn't ask you, are you receiving it and do you want to take the exemption? It just says, are you receiving government assistance? If you say yes, it automatically deletes the fee and sends you down that path. It doesn't ask you, because I've had some say, well, I am getting it. I am getting food stamps, but I've got the money to pay for it. I just want to go ahead and pay it. So then you tell them no. And they said, well, but I am getting it. I said, okay, so say yes, you're getting it, but no, you don't want to do the fee waiver. And the online version of that is not that clear. It just says, are you receiving government assistance? Yes. Boom, and it all starts happening. So I wish that, are you receiving it? Yes. okay, then do you want to do this? But it doesn't do that. It just sort of heads down that path. But so you guys as certified trainers, y'all do need to know about this, because this is part of your business. This is what you're training people for. And so then they're going to turn around. That's where we need the partnership between you all and our office needs to be good and solid, so that we tell you all about this and you all know about it, and then we don't get a bunch of stuff. So when you teach this, just tell them, hey, if you're gonna do this, you've got to supply the documentation. Just like I remember that one slide I told you that one of the biggest problems we encounter at PPS is missing information. So if you've been arrested, you've got to show the documentation. We deny people for material misstatements every day. Have you been arrested? No. Have you been charged? No. Have you ever been? No. And then when we Google them in TBI, TBI says yes, yes, yes. Well, if they say no and TBI said yes, that they're going to get possibly, they're going to get denied for a material misstatement. So there again, that's because of missing information that they should have supplied. Yes, Angel.
When they go through that process, and I'm like Mr. Bird over here, I'm not familiar with the process. When it takes them down that road, is there an opportunity for them to upload that documentation just like they would? Okay.
Absolutely. When you get to the section where the attachments are, picture, fingerprint receipt,
So it's in the same bucket then?
if they're not there, we can't process them. And you can also put your court documents, proof of,
I thought it was a separate
Okay,
bucket.
Sidebar here, so let's, no, that's okay. Go ahead and say what you were saying.
Yeah, it was the same bucket that we put all the.
yes, other. And there's another one that says something about proof of, help me out, proof of, what is it, Jesse? Proof of not rehab, but proof of,
I can't remember offhand.
there's another category that you can supply proof of treatment program or something like that.
You've got everything from training to
Yeah. So there's several places that you can do. And you got to do at least 2 or 3, or the system won't let you move to the payment section. Otherwise, you could scan all these documents into one PDF file and just attach it, but you'd have to attach it twice. And there's a couple of places in Memphis that does that. They put it 3 times. It's the one document, and they do it 3 times, and because they have to get through the system. And I like that because I know which ones they are after I'm working a bunch of applications, and all you got to do is open one of them, and you got it all in one thing. Frank, you had a question?
So the couple of years we do this, that's the first thing I talk about, orientation. Sorry.
Got to get close
And-
to it.
Wow, is this good?
That's it. Now you can hear it.
Not
See?
that close.
No, that's
So
what we're supposed
I've
to
had several
hear.
people ask me, I previewed your application to make sure they answer this, and if they do, I say, is this in your name? Because a lot of people say, no, it's in my mom's name. I said, well, that's not going to work. It's got to be in your name.
Yeah, that's another thing, like the low income and all that kind of stuff. You'll have a whole household, and maybe he's the live-in boyfriend, and his girlfriend's got the benefits, and you don't qualify just because you're dating somebody that's got the low income.
You touched on it earlier, but then, like Frank said, if it's in his girlfriend, wife, or mother's name, what if they're listed on there as the people that stay with them and they're on that sheet? Does that still qualify them for the low income.
I think it does.
Even though it's not in their name, but they are listed as dependents or whatever on there.
Should. I'm trying to think of how that would look on. I know what you're talking about. You know, especially when you see that with.
Well, if you're
Exactly.
married, if you're married to that person, more than likely you will be listed.
Even though it's not.
Even though,
His name is not on there as hers or his.
yeah,
If they're listed, they're fine because at that point you're receiving that assistance still.
Okay.
I think that's mainly the inquiry we're looking at. But yeah, that if I don't know if you'd be a dependent. I don't know what they would classify you as other than just a member of the household. And at that point, you know that assistance is still coming to you.
once you're 35, you
Come off of it.
usually pretty much no
do.
longer a dependent.
Right, but I was thinking, you know, if you had a disability, you could be someone's
35.
dependent still.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Keeps going up.
Tell that to my oldest son.
No, it's really 35. That's not a joke.
Oh, no, he
I
was
said
joking.
Oh.
if you're 35.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what in the?
If you're dating some lady that's on this assistance, just because you're her right hand man, that don't mean you're her dependent.
He's making a joke, but I think you could be still, as an adult, someone over 18. You know, if you're someone who has some type of permanent disability, that would be strange if you're applying for a job. But there are still some people who have disabilities with Social Security that are able to work at least part-time. So you could be applying to be a part-time officer. You're listed as someone's dependent, maybe your parent, maybe someone else, because you are on Social Security as a disabled person. So that would be one instance where, you know, maybe you're not the named beneficiary, but we could use it because you were listed at that point as receiving state assist or receiving assistance. If you're married, typically you're both going to be on there. But Jeff Winfrey's correct though. If it's a boyfriend, you're not on there. Even if you have kids together, you know, and for some reason you're not married and not also receiving it, you're likely not going to be included at that point.
More than likely, if you qualify, you will be listed on the document. So these are cases that I've seen where, you know, the guy'd be saying, "Well, I'm low income." Well, your name's not on the doc. Well, it's actually my girlfriend and her kids are on there, and I'm like, "Well, no, you got to pay up, buddy." So, okay.
I second
Sure.
it.
I told him we'd break about 10:30, but we can do it right now.
We're gonna go on record as taking a 10-minute break. That be okay? Thank you. We do have a microwave over here.
Brand that has all the stuff built into it.
Oh, Lord.
Done. Circle still burn. Turn it off. So they can't.
Lot lizards out there.
Oh my
What did I get ready to say?
Just the other day.
Good guy.
I just want to be like you when I grow up.
Yeah, Frank, let me
Frankie Lax, don't hate me.
the way it changed. So
previous ones I'm sure you looked at, you know, you have to have experience plus.
Case in it,
Yeah.
30 something.
Well, you give me your ticket and I'll take care of it. So we need to go ahead and get started again.
All right,
And we need to.
do you call it to order?
And we need to.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that first.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we need to get started again. So let's call this meeting back to order. Yeah.
Makes sense.
We'll call the
I'll look at it. Talk to you.
Private Protective Trainer meeting back to, committee meeting back to order. Thank you. Did you want to do?
Okay, first thing we want to do is recognize one of our team members for his contribution this morning. If you have gone back here and had some fruit or Chick-fil-A chicken and biscuits, Angel Rodriguez,
Yeah.
thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Is he gonna do that for lunch as well? Don said it's on him.
I thought he was. I mean, he didn't say he wasn't. So I learned a long time ago. Once you start volunteering to do things, then much is expected of you, right?
He's not going to be able to get back in through that door, so he will be coming through here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's like one of those cop car doors, right? it just only works one way. All right, so we talked about that. Let me see where else. I did something on 133, and I'm almost done with this PowerPoint. What did I do here? My notes say I did. Oh, I added in parentheses, and I believe,
Commerce and insurance is what you added.
I believe that I said that I added in parentheses licenses, registrations, and certifications expire at the end of the month. Somewhere in the, I think right here it says registrations are good. Oh, right here. All registration cards shall. All said. Not really right, because if you apply for armed guard and it comes into my box and I work it today and I send it for approval and Tony approves it today, you're gonna expire on June 30th of 2023, not June the 11th of 2023. So that's why I just added that in parentheses, that they expire at the end of the month. That's just something I think we decided to do as a, right?
No, the commerce and insurance, all licenses expire. There are other programs, let me rephrase that might expire at the end of the year, but yours expires every 2 years at the end of the month that they made the application or it gets approved. Now, it's always at the end of the month. Some of you have been around a long time. It used to be 1 year, and then it used to be anytime during the month, but then it's changed and it made it a whole lot easier now. They all expire at the end of the month. But what I wanted to say about that was, you expire. If you expire June the 30th, you're expired. That's just all there is to it. Now, you do have a grace period of 3 months. That's what it means, a grace period to get back into compliance so you don't have to spend all that money over again. But you technically are not supposed to be working. You are expired on all licenses that we do. And since we're talking about that, I'll give you the good news. We do have the new printers in the building. I got 15,000 new cards already. They are, I don't have mine on. They're smaller than your license that you have now, the security guards have. They're smaller, so they should fit in a wallet a whole lot better. These don't exactly fit in from what I understand. They will have a hologram, and there'll be the state flag in the middle. Whenever you will be the alarms, the PIs, and PPS will be the only ones with these cards. These are, we got it fixed, hopefully, so we won't have to be dealing with a lot of forgery. Because a lot of people, you might not know that, but we do get false cards, believe it or not. You know, and the picture's been put on there like 4 times and taped down, and you kind of know where I'm going with that. So, but this is supposed to be harder for them to be able to do that, and they are very pretty, very pretty. That was a discussion we had. It's kind of, let me see. We get a big sheet like this, and then you can fold it over, and this is your wall certificate. This up at the top on the right-hand side is where we rip off that little card. We won't be ripping off the little card for the trainers. For the trainers or for the companies. You're going to get just the whole certificate now. You don't put a picture on it like anybody.
They're issued a little card now.
Yeah. It's supposed to be, yeah.
And it looks just like the PPS card.
Yeah.
The difference is
You'll still get the wall certificate bent over, and it still have the piece up there to the top for you to rip off, if you wish to do so. Only going to be. That's another thing while we're talking. If I can take a minute here for you to go into the test. My staff is fighting me on this, but why don't unarmed guards have to have training for renewal? Do they have unarmed? Do they have?
They should.
But they don't, do they?
Set a room full of trainers.
Oh, okay. So that's one thing we might start looking at, because that would probably require a law change. It's something to look at.
you got that, right.
Why don't they have a picture on their license? But that is one of our biggest databases is our unarmed guards. So I'm
About
still
30 or 40,000 a year that we'd be looking at.
we do.
Oh. Action.
So aren't we the pictures for unarmed
You can
guards?
tell who has the training academy and who has the company.
Oh, we're talking about.
No, I thought we were doing that already, or we were going to do it with the new printer.
What we're working on. So, I mean, like I said, the staff
Well,
is
them
saying
real
no
burning.
because it's going to be really hard to do. It's going to be a bigger volume, and I might need 3 or 4 printers. Who knows? Or 2 or 3 more people. So I'm still working on that. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And like I had mentioned earlier to January, I believe it was, I have tried for years to get administration to understand. I thought it would be very beneficial if we had a satellite office in Memphis, or if we had a satellite office in the East-West, maybe come once a month just to help with those criminal records or people that have the low income or whatever, to take off the company. Big
Frankie Lang's coming in.
I'm coming to Memphis.
All right, so let's
That said nobody ever.
let's go ahead and look back. This is the last thing that I have about the 4 hours of General Guard training, and that was question number 13. Originally, it said if you have a prior criminal history and were convicted of a felony or misdemeanor, your situation must now be reviewed, and you might still be able to become registered, provided that at least 5 years has passed since you completed court-ordered probation. And that's dealt with in slide number 106. So it ended right there. So I just went in there and added, furthermore, another law is available that allows a person who is currently receiving government funding for low-income individuals. I just put in waive the initial application fee, but not renewal fees. And of course, that's covered in slide 112. The answer was true, and it's still true. And so going forward, as the years come along, if we used to change the test over at TWRA, the Hunter Ed test, we had 100 questions. We might change the question, we might change the choices of the answers, but if C was used to be the correct answer, then C would still be the correct answer, because we had those plastic overlays for keys that somebody took a drill and drilled holes through them, and so that's what I propose going forward. If we have to make a change in something, whatever the answer used to be, just still make that the right answer. So that's what I did. I just added that other sentence. So now we told what we were going to teach, we taught it, and then we tested over it. So they've seen it 3 times. So that's the only thing I did to the test. So we voted to approve the test the last time, and so that's the one change that I made. I just added that other sentence there to take care of the statute that I realized at the last minute we'd left out. So at this point, I believe we have I believe we got a real good grocery basket. I think we got good groceries in our basket.
Okay, so are we ready to vote on this?
I
Is that
think
what
we
you're
are.
trying to
Yes.
say?
I move that we accept the new changes.
I move that we accept the new changes and the final vote on the unarmed guard curriculum and final exam.
Second. Jack. I got you. Frank's got both of us.
Okay, we'll go, so we have a motion, made by Curtis Brand and second by Jack Burt to accept the unarmed training as it has been, provided today. So we're gonna do a roll call, or I don't have to do a roll call, but all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you
Very much. So, and I will say this, going forward, if we have to make any kind of changes or whatever, I mean, if the law changes or whatever, obviously we have to go in and do that, and it'll be pretty easy to do that. And this is all, it's on the PowerPoint, it's on Word document, and so I'll be able to make the change and send it out to everybody like I do. This was one of the versions that I sent you, and this particular one, it has to do with, this is sort of the instructor version. So every question, a lot of times when you're teaching, I know when I'm teaching a college biology class, sometimes the canned questions that come with the book, I'll be going, I must have missed that day because I don't remember that. But I always like to be able to go back and refer to where this material came from. So if right here at number 15 says training is valid for blank. Well, if you go to slide 122, you should be able to go there, and that slide should tell you training is valid for 1 year. Somewhere on that slide, that's what you should have taught. So if you get to questioning yourself, well, did I do the right thing, or did I say the right thing, or what? I've confused myself. Then you as an instructor can go back to the slide that deals with that and go, oh yeah, that is what it says. Okay, well, I just thought something else. So that's sort of what I thought that would be helpful to the trainer. You go back and or maybe you read the question and it doesn't say what you thought it said. That's one thing I always tell my students. Make sure you read the question and read what it says, not what you think it says. Because, tests will throw in those words like not, everything but, or all, this is not the right answer, or whatever. So sometimes you're looking for the wrong answer to be the right answer. So you just got to make sure that you are looking for the right thing. So I think that'll help. And all the answers are there as well. So I also sent you this is the same file. This is the same file, except it's not highlighted and it's not, the slides are not referred to. So this is what you would print out and hand your student. This is the answer key that you would print out. You should be able to just print, like January, if you've got 30 or 40, you should be able to print maybe 50 copies, and that's all you should have to print for a year or more, maybe. Okay. And then, but these, you'd print these out every day before you started doing class. Or you could print out 500 of them or go somewhere and have them done or whatever, and they'll always be there. So they're just a blank sheet. It's got a place for their name, date, and then of course you'd put the score up there, whoever's going to grade it for you. And then this document was the answer key, so it's got the answers in the blanks. So you should be able to fold that in half and lay it down on your paper, and you should be able to grade that pretty quick. And it's got, of course, you see it's the key, and that's sort of what it would. And I put it was going to be effective July the 1st, so we exceeded that by a little bit, maybe. Presentation we did. This is the program outline. So the one thing I wanted to reiterate about this. We want to do this. We want this same type of thing for the armed and for the armed renewal. So as we're working on that, we want to make sure that we're working something just like that. Course description, the goals, topics. So we want to make sure that we have the same outline for the armed and for the renewal. So, and that brings me to that part. I sort of had hoped that we would have all of this done by the end of this month, which probably may not quite be there, but I think we're still on target to I don't see this being 5 years down the road or anything. So, those of you that are on the armed subcommittee, Leroy brought me some stuff today on a jump drive. Frank has submitted some stuff. The biggest thing is the legal part. That. Okay. Okay. That's the only thing. I've got all this stuff. I mean, I put these things together from the police academy a long time ago. I'll just leave it at that. But the only thing I'm not up to speed on are some of the laws that may have changed since I was doing that. And so anyway, that's the critical part. We want to make sure that we're quoting. I know Tennessee versus Garner is still one that everybody's teaching that. That's still a big landmark issue out of Memphis. Yes. You may have. So I don't know if y'all saw my little. Here's what my.
But while he's doing that, on the test he had up there, the information had July the 1st. That may not be set in stone yet, because after we finished all this and you've approved it, we still have to take it to administration. It's obviously been approved through our legal department, but our assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner, commissioner, whomever, will need to bless this before you can start using it. Just out there. We're shooting for that. We'll see.
Yeah, I just
hopefully.
I just put those dates on there just make it as official.
Expected date that's
Well, that's going to require a rule change.
As I say, mandatory is going to be that might be a little bit longer of a timeline. I think what we're hoping is that once we get all of this prepared, that this committee has put this together. We would like to be able to collect some data. I mean, if say you start using this and you're saying this isn't working, this is not really helping us, we don't want to end up having a rule change that says everyone needs to use this training curriculum, and then 6 months from now we end up saying, well, that was not what we wanted. We need to go in a different direction. So I think the goal would be kind of start using this, once our assistant commissioner has approved of it from our end, get people to start using it, see if it's helpful, if it's something where, maybe, Curtis Brown is saying this is helpful, but here's what I'm doing differently. Blaze Lane saying this is helpful, I'm doing this differently. We do want to get the test to the point where that becomes something that's nailed down, and then I think the actual curriculum as well also nailed down. Maybe that will be a little bit more fluid, but we're looking at probably a little bit longer of a timeline for that, just so we have that ability to make sure that this is actually working well. We do want to make sure that we're setting that baseline first and getting some data points. If it's something where you all are saying this is not good and this is not what we need to be doing, then maybe we need to reconvene. But I think the way the law is right now, there's nothing saying that there's a requirement that there's a standard test. And I think that that's something where we're looking at that and saying, well, that's scary. We don't know what everyone is doing out there, and we want to make sure that we're setting this up for success.
So is part of that idea of waiting to send all of these rule changes all at once in front of the commission?
It is, and we're working on some rule changes right now. There have been some things that you all have brought up in previous meetings, things such as the less than lethal means. That's something that we're looking at already, getting early on. We're not trying to do everything at that point, but some of the actual training requirements, those might take a little bit longer, just because we want to make sure that we're doing this right instead of doing this fast. Does that make sense?
Well, I'll bring up my issue again, and now I got a guy here that's on the same page with me. We're contract security
We'll fix
guard.
that, Mr. Bird. We'll move you over here.
Hey, trying to put me smack dab in the middle.
I hate over here in the middle.
So we have all these academies in here. Okay, so you pull the trigger on this to mandatory teach. They're live teaching. Okay, me and this guy are going to have to video. We're going to spend a lot of money in trying to do what we're set out to do, and then 6 months down the road, y'all add the lead change. And I mean, can you imagine how it was? I mean.
Well, just to kind of go with the conversation we were talking about, you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to make a video. The vessel can change. Remember the whole bread conversation we had? So you can choose to do something else that's cheaper.
But you guys are live teaching every day. That's y'all's job. That's y'all's business. That's not ours. We train, but we can't teach every day. We're running a hard service. We don't train the volume that y'all do. Obviously,
No, when
y'all
you
make
said
a
that,
living.
I about died. I can't
Yeah.
imagine.
Well, there's 3 of us in there.
Right.
To be perfectly fair.
Business cards, because I need some of those folks.
I mean, I'd be more than happy to send my people to academies.
Oh, that's Memphis. Never mind. You're right.
Academies,
Yeah.
there's some academies close to where I am. So that's why I became a trainer years ago.
I think the goal would probably be to put the test, see if the test is actually working, see if that's because I think that will constructively show the baseline of is the knowledge getting to where we need to do. Maybe the curriculum will be the thing that we're waiting more on to make sure that that is getting us to where the test is, because the goal of the test is to have this same baseline of knowledge that a guard in Memphis, if he or she's working in Memphis, then they go to Knoxville, that there's not going to be something different. There's always going to be some changes. If you're working for a contract security company and then you're going in-house somewhere, there's going to be a lot of, culture changes with that. But knowing use of force, that shouldn't really change place to place. And we want to make sure our guards are aware of that if they're being licensed by the state. So I think the test will probably be something that becomes more, or maybe fast-tracked than the curriculum, making sure that that is getting us to that baseline of knowledge, that's correctly making sure that that knowledge is being taught to our guards. That might take a little while longer. And that's something we'll probably be looking at more of those baseline points. So I think to your point of if you're recording it, maybe some of that will have to be a little bit more fluid just to make sure, because if you've gotten everything, your students, they're passing the test, they're doing well, they've demonstrated that they know the knowledge, but you're teaching it slightly different than the PowerPoint. You're not just reading the PowerPoint straight. Maybe you're printing it off and giving that to them to read through while you're also doing videos or you're doing something else. I don't think that we're as concerned with how you get there as much as we are saying this is the knowledge we want to make sure that you have. The only way that we can really show that you know this knowledge is through a test. I mean, we could go and audit classes, but that's not as efficient. That's something that I know we have done. We could, look at complaints and see, okay, well, all of these guards that have gotten complaints for using unlawful force, or excessive force, they're all being taught by the same trainer. Maybe that trainer is having an issue there, because we do have, we will see some parallels there between complaints of, they all kind of came from this same area. They were all with the same company. So the test is probably going to be the more baseline that we're going for. How you get there, whether you all are doing something different than January Farrell's doing, because she's doing it in person, I think that we're probably more okay with that. But the PowerPoint is more of a tool to make sure that we're getting that knowledge, that we're not unfairly saying, here's this test, good luck.
My question would be, can y'all's people pass this test that we just looked at?
I think so, absolutely. But part of this, when we talked about it, is we're looking at a little bit different structure. Same questions, but if we have an interactive PowerPoint, so it plays a video for 2 to 3 minutes, goes over a subject matter, and then asks those questions that it requires them to answer in real time, they answer the same questions, but they're covering the section that they just did. Is that acceptable?
I would think so. I mean, I would think so with what the first answer to that right now where we are, yes. I think when we're looking at potentially making this more mandatory, there shouldn't be a reason why we would set it up to say no. You all are the trainers, and we want to empower you to be able to, effectively teach these guards. So as long as they're learning it, if you're doing questions as it goes through sections, or if you're doing, some type of review at the end, I don't think that we should be necessarily interfering with that, and I don't think our rule changes would address that.
I know a lot of you in the room are familiar with vAcademy, Virtual Academy, where they would have sections of questions. That's kind of our thing. It's working toward a cumulative goal of, at the end, it'll give you a score. Instead of having just a test at the end, you'll have those 2 questions in groups of 5 to 10.
And it may be a situation, too, I know you both of you, I think, have mentioned having to invest in new videos or change things. It may be a situation where your material already covers everything that's already on the test, already covers everything in the PowerPoint, but you have to add information about that low-income waiver, or you have to add information about Fresh Start Act. So I'm not saying that you would have to necessarily do that as a video. Potentially it's something you could just say afterwards, say, oh, hey, by the way, this is something the state wants you to be aware of. Here's a handout so you can look at it as well. I don't want to tell you how to, do your job with it, but I think that potentially it's something where it may not require that huge buy-in or that huge change from what you're doing right now. 1, because it's not mandatory, but 2, if you're already covering it in another fashion and it's working. I think that's the other question. If it's working, then you probably should stick with it.
That's my question. If they can't answer those 50 questions from what you're giving them, My question is, what are you giving them?
Especially from our perspective, where we're not just training them and sending them out, we're retaining them. Of course, if you can't answer these questions, I don't want you in my employ.
So that's my thing. As long as they can answer those questions, because who has decided that material is important? This group has decided that. And what did we decide that based on? We decided it based on what the statutes mandates, what the rules mandate, and what the security industry minimum standards are. That's where I mean, I don't think we made anything up. You know, we didn't pull anything out of a hat and say, "Oh, here's something. Let's throw this on there." So I think we can go back and back all that up. So then the question is, can they pass the test? Do they not just can they pass the test, but did you somehow impart that material knowledge onto your students? And if you didn't, then that goes back to my question. You know, what are you going over instead of this? So as long as they can pass it and you know they have that knowledge and information, that's what's important.
And I think one more thing to add too is I know we all voted on this today, so the next step would be, you know, we're talking to our commissioner before we're, you know, necessarily saying start using this. And based on the law right now, it would again still be optional. You know, it's not necessarily mandatory. So I think our goal would be is once we're saying yes, start using this, to use it, and if it's not working or that you're seeing issues, you know, to start letting Cody Vest know, let Jeff Winfrey know, start letting our staff know, because when we're looking at doing the rule change, we're still going to have a rulemaking hearing. So that's, you know, there's going to be public comment with that. So if it's a situation by the time we get all the way there and we say, okay, we've got someone maybe not who wasn't even on the committee, maybe it's a guard or someone else who's had issues and they say, I want to make some public comment here, because we do have people who will make public comments, but someone who's saying, here's the issues that I'm seeing, that would all be taken into consideration as well before there's necessarily a rule change. So just because this is voted on today or approved by the commissioner, say it's approved by the commissioner this afternoon, and we say, great, start using this test. If for some reason you leave here saying, well, I don't want to use this yet, or I want to transition a little bit slower, I want to start doing that, you would still be able to under the law or the current law. And by the time we get to that potential rulemaking hearing as well, that's where we really want to know all of our comments by them. We want to know as much data as we can to see if we need to change it.
That sound good for everybody?
You understood that, didn't you?
That's more than fair.
Yeah.
I think people should.
This is the first step. Hey, we've been trying to do this for a long time, as you know, just to form the committee. Oh, I thought I told you at the first meeting. I hope I did anyway. This is a slow process. But this is the first step. We got the test. You have voted on it. We're going to move it up the ladder. We're going to tell you everything's fine. Go ahead and implement. You're going to come back to us, like you said, to give us whatever the results are. Then we're going to push to have some legislation done, whether it's through a law or
Reiterate what Jesse's been saying. I can't stress enough that when you make a rule change, see, that was the first thing we wanted to do. We wanted to come up with this and then adapt the rule to fit this, not the other way around. Because if you make a rule that says, by George, this is what we're going to do, then that's what you got to do. And if it doesn't make sense, you gotta do it that way for a year, because it takes about a year to make a rule change. It's a big, long, drawn out process. So you want to make sure you got to be careful what you wish for, and you got to make sure you're wishing for the right thing that's going to be beneficial. So that's what we're going to try to do. Do we need to? That's really all that. I mean, other than I wanted to talk about the arm stuff, and we sort of did. So. Next meeting, do we want to go ahead and schedule?
we don't. Do we have it scheduled yet?
We haven't scheduled another meeting.
Okay, let me look in the calendar then.
And what I want to know is if we push it out a month and a half,
August.
You want to do early August,
August, yeah.
or that's about a month and a half. It should make sure that everything. Is that too far, or is that
We got event calendars coming up in August.
okay? Or the end of July. I just want to make sure everyone has plenty of time to get everything. Because I know January Farrell had mentioned having some things that she needed to work on. Was anyone else? Oh, okay, okay, good.
She's got to get NASA to rebuild her computer
Right.
first.
No kidding. Oh my.
I just-
I have had the most horrible past 3 weeks.
I don't want to make anyone get stuck in Nashville traffic and then have to come back a second time. All right, great.
Second.
Wait a minute, guys. Y'all sound like auctioneers over here.
Hey.
Just don't do it the 4th. My son will kill me. That's his 18th.
How about, okay, Jack, how about you? August. Can you look at it, Frankie?
Bells and whistles. Is here,
Yeah, it'll be here. Everything.
I know that's.
from now
I was
on,
thrown
it'll
off.
be here. It's all of them from now.
bells and whistles.
If for some reason someone can't make it to the meeting in person, just let us know as soon as possible. If we can still have a quorum in person, we're fine legally. If we need, one person, 2 people, maybe 3 people who have to meet via Zoom, everyone else can meet in person, get a quorum, we can potentially make that work. But
We don't want to do that. We
Right.
want you to be here in person. It's harder to do the Zoom when you have to do the telephone and
if there is something, just let us know as soon as possible so we can make accommodations.
Okay, so what we're looking at is August the 6th. Everybody got that? At 9 o'clock in this room here, probably 1B. We'll set that up.
I'll tell you something we can do if.
We'll need to take a vote.
Well, let me say this before we vote. We've been doing 9 to noon.
To the east.
We could put maybe go eat lunch and then come back for an hour or 2 and get the biggest bang out of your buck for those of you that have to drive. Of course, Donald Gregory, I think he flew in this morning on some kind of, what'd you come in?
Can't hide money.
But I mean, it is a long distance from the Memphis area and Jackson and Knoxville. And,
I think they like getting out of Memphis.
Well, we could always start later in the morning, and that would even help with you coming in.
well, that I was just going to suggest that if we wanted to meet longer, if you felt like we needed to, I mean, if we can, I mean, we need to get the armed up to where we are, with the unarmed now, because we're finished with that part. So, and it shouldn't be. I don't think it should be that difficult. But I was just throwing that out. If you wanted to change the times or add something, or maybe 2 hours before lunch, go eat and then come back for 2 hours, whatever. Just something to think about.
All right, we need to go ahead and have a vote for our next meeting. That would be on August the 6th, starting at 9 o'clock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Are we adjourned?
We have to have a motion.
I have
for
to
that,
have a
don't we?
motion.
Motion to adjourn.
That was so quick, I didn't.
Jack and Curtis. Jack and Curtis. You like that?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, we timed it. I kicked him under the table. He knew when to go.
Okay, we have a motion by Jack Bird to adjourn. Have a second by Curtis Brown. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting adjourned
Amen.
at 11:05.
I told you we could train Jack to.
Wow, don't start, Jeff. Don't do this.
What we do?
Nothing. We didn't do nothing.